Let us start with the reciting of chapter 15. Vasudevasutam devam kansachanuramardhanam devaki paramanandam krishnam vande jagadguru. Sri Bhagavan Uvacha Urdhvamulam Adhashakam Ashvatam Prahuravyayam Chandamsi Yasya Paranani Yastam Veda Savedaved Adhaschordhvam Prasatastasya Sakha Puna Pravirda Vishaya Pravala Adascha Mulani Anusamtatani Karmanubandini Manushaloke Narupamasye Atato Palapyate Nanto Nachadir Nacha Sampratishta Ashwatamenam Suvirudamulam Asangasastrena Dridena Chitva Tatha padam tad parimargitavyam yasmin gatana nivatanti bhuya tam eva chadyam purusham prapadye yatta pravarti prashata purani nirmana moha chita dosha adhyatma nitya vinivreta kama द्वन्द्वैर्विमुक्ता सुखदुःखसंज्ञैर् कच्चन्तमूढा पदमव्ययं तत् न तद्भासयते सूर्यो न शशाङ्को न पावक यद्गत्वा न निवर्तन्ते तद्धाम परमं मम ममैवांसो जीवलोके जीवभूत सनातन मनशस्थानि इन्द्रियाणि प्रकृतिष्ठानि कर्षति शरीरं यादवाप्नोति यच्चाप्युत्क्रामतीश्वर गृहीत्वेतानि संयाति वायुर्गन्धानि वांसयत् श्रोत्रं चक्षुस्प्रसनं च रसनं घ्राणमेव च अधिष्ठाय मनश्चायं विषयन्नुपसेवते उत्क्रामन्तं स्थितं वापि भुञ्जानां वा गुणान् विमूढानानुपश्यन्ति पश्यन्ति ज्ञानचक्षुषा यतन्तो योगिनश्चैनं पश्यन्त्यात्मान्यवस्थितं यतन्तोऽप्याकृतात्मानो नैनं पश्यन्त चेतसः यद् आदित्यगतं तेजो जगद्भासयतेऽखिलं यच्चन्द्रमसि यच्चाग्नौ तत्तेजो वेदिमामकम् गाम् अविश्य च भूतानि धारयाम्यहमोजसा पुष्णामि चौषधी सर्व सोमो भूत्वा रसत्मका अहं वैश्वानरो भूत्वा प्राणिनां देहमाश्रित प्राणपानसमयुक्त पचाम्यन्नं चतुर्विधं सर्वस्य चाहं हृदि सन्निविष्टो मत्तास्मृतिर्ज्ञानमपोहनं च वेदेश्च सर्वे अहमेव वेद्यो वेदान्तकृद्वेदविदेव चाहम् द्वौ इमौ पुरुषौ लोके क्षरश्च क्षर एव च क्षरः सर्वाणि भूतानि कूटस्थोऽक्षर उच्यते उत्तमा पुरुषस्त्वन्य परमात्मेत्युदारत यो लोकत्रयम् आविश्य बिभर्त्यव्याय ईश्वर यस्माक्षरम् अतीतोऽहम् अक्षरादपि चोत्तम अतोऽस्मि लोके वेदे च प्रतिता पुरुषोत्तमा यो मामेवं सम्मूढो जानाति पुरुषोत्तमं स सर्वविद् भजति मां सर्वभावेन भारत iti guyatamam shastram idam muktam maya naga etad budva buddhimanshat kritakrityascha bharata. Om Tatsaditi. Bhagavad Gita Supanishatsu Brahma Vidyayam Yoga Shastre Sri Krishna Arjun Samvade Purushottama Yogo Nam Panchadasodhyaya. Hari Om Tat Sat. Hari Om Tat Sat. Hari Om Tat Sat. Sri Krishna Arpanam Mastu Shubham Bhuyat Vasudeva Sutam Devam Kansachanuramardanam Devaki Paramanandam Krishnam Vande Jagadguru. Hari Om. We are now going through chapter 18, which is said to be a summary of all the teachings of the Bhagavad Gita. So these verses also we are going through now, verses 53 onwards. Krishna will repeat what he has already given in the earlier chapters, that is the practice of karma yoga, bhakti yoga, and jnana yoga. So we have seen certain qualities of a devotee in the previous verses. Now in verse 53, Krishna will carry on giving us some more qualities of a true devotee. And what he says in verse 53, he says, such a person who has gone through the process of karma yoga, surrendering all the actions to the Lord, and who has attained a purified mind, and then he has come to the path of jnana yoga. What is the nature of such a person? So he says this person has vimuchya. Vimuchya means he has already discarded or he has transcended. What has he transcended? There are 6 impurities in our spiritual path. These 6 impurities are a barrier in our spiritual growth. But this devotee has transcended, has trespassed this. So to us, it means to be very careful about these 6 qualities. And we ourselves have to transcend these 6 qualities. And some of these qualities Krishna has already mentioned in chapter 16, verse 4, when he spoke about the demoniacal tendencies in human beings. So there also he gave similar qualities there, and he listed this as demoniacal. And demoniacal tendencies meaning those that keep us away from the spiritual path. So what are they? First one is called ahamkaram. Now ahamkaram translated just means giving up the ego. Okay. Ahamkaram is ego. But ego, in a very general term, means just having pride. But in spiritual terms, the ahamkaram has got a more deeper meaning. Here, the word ahamkara means the attachment or identification with our lower self, the body. That is a true ahamkara. Because once we are attached to this body, means we only consider ourselves this body. It's quite hot a bit, right? You feel hot? Yeah. As long as we consider ourselves as this body, that means everything that is associated with this body, my name, my power, my position, my wealth, I get attached to it. So ahamkara means the very basic fundamental problem whereby we are attached or we identify with this body. And in chapter 3, verse 27, Krishna spoke about this. So we just go back briefly to take a look at this chapter 3, verse 27. That's on page 71. So there also he used this word ahamkara. He said, actually the body is functioning, is doing all the actions. Various actions are carried out by the body and the mind. And what is it that is influencing or driving the actions of the body and the mind are the three gunas. So it is the gunas that are responsible for the actions. When you identify with the body, you say, I am the doer. Aham karta, I am the doer. So that means everything which I succeed in life, whatever I've attained in life, I attribute it to my own actions. Whereas that is what the ignorant person says. Whereas the realized person does not identify with the body, identifies with the higher self. So he knows that the body is functioning according to the gunas. He becomes a mere observer, a witness. So one of the biggest obstacles here is ahamkara, identification with the body. And ahamkara leads to ahamkarta. I am the doer. I am the doer. Okay? Because I accept myself as the body. So, if the Atma is the weakness in this body, we must understand why is the body performing actions? Not because of Atma. Atma does not cause any function. It does not influence any function. It remains the weakness. Therefore, the one that is actually causing the actions are no other than the three gunas. Now, what happens when you identify with the body and say, I am the doer? What happens? What happens when you identify with the body and say, I am the doer? What is the outcome? Sorry? Sorry? Yeah, arrogance is also ahamkar, but what happens in spiritual terms when we say, I am the doer? Punyam and papam, exactly. We accumulate, we connect with the action, we identify with the action, then we connect with the punyam or papam. And what happens when you connect with punyam and papam? Huh? There's rebirth again. There's punarapi jananam, punarapi maranam. So that whole cycle, in order for us to break that cycle, we have to attain this attitude that we are the self and not the body. It's not easy, but that is the ultimate status that we have to attain, to detach ourselves from this body and the actions. The second quality also that is what we call a hindrance on the spiritual path, but this person has overcome it, and that is given as balam. Balam means power, okay? And where you think that you have all the necessary power and you use this power. But Krishna did mention actually that power also is good if it is used for the right purposes. So if we exercise our power to what we call for the right purpose, for the right action, then such power is a good power. And to serve society, to give charity, to uphold dharma, you use that power to do all these things, then it is the correct way. But when we abuse that power for adharma, then it becomes a problem. So if you look at the Kauravas and the Pandavas, the Pandavas had also their power. They had all their equipment, their what you call this, weapons to fight the war. The Kauravas also had the weapons to fight the war. But the difference was Kauravas were using their aggression, their power to propagate adharma. Whereas the Pandavas were using their power to stop adharma and to bring back dharma. So, power, if used for the right purpose, is okay. But here, Krishna is talking about power which is abused. The third quality is darpam. Darpa means pride or arrogance. Okay, this is the real pride or arrogance. So there is a difference between ahamkara and darpa. Ahamkara is identification with the body. Darpam is real pride and arrogance. In fact, the interesting thing is in Sanskrit, the mirror, the mirror that we look into, the mirror, It is known as darpana. So, who is the arrogant person? Who's always looking in the mirror? I am beautiful, I am handsome, I am powerful, I am rich. So, darpam is that kind of arrogance once you're intoxicated with all that. And what is the problem when a person is intoxicated with pride and arrogance? What is the problem with that? When someone is so intoxicated with his pride, his power, he becomes very arrogant. What is the greatest problem that can happen? There is no humility in such a person, right? There is no humility. So arrogance is the real opposite of humility. An arrogant person can never be humble. He never can become humble means there's no gratitude for the Lord. You have no appreciation for whatever the Lord has blessed you with because you always think that you yourself are responsible and capable of everything. Okay. So
that is vanity.
yes, vanity, pride, arrogance, it can be a number of things. And you see, they're all interrelated. When there is vanity, there's pride, there is arrogance also. What there is not is lack of humility. That is the most biggest problem. Okay. So you are intoxicated, you have bad manners, bad behavior, rude to people, etc. Fourth quality given here is kamam. Kama means desire. Again, very careful. It is not a problem to have desires. Every human being has desires. But what they are talking about here is excessive materialistic and sensual desires, when you are unable to control these desires. So all kinds of desires which are excessive and you're unable to control them, then they become a burden. They become what we call obstacle in our spiritual path. Because any desire that overpowers us makes us do the wrong actions. We don't think carefully. We perform the wrong actions. And the next one is the most dangerous one then. Number 5, krodham, anger. Anger, the biggest problem with anger is that it overtakes your ability to think rationally. Once you're overpowered with anger, you are prone to violence. You're prone to just say words that you might not say during normal times. So anger is a very, very what we call a very dangerous quality for any spiritual aspirant. The reason is that we lose control of our thinking capacity. Sixth quality, also very important, parigraham. Parigraham means one who does not unnecessarily accumulate possessions. Now, what is wrong with accumulating possessions? More greedy. Through what else? Attachment. So, what is the biggest problem with attachment? When you have more and more possessions, you become attached to it. Then, what is the next problem that happens? Your mind is always focused on what you have. The more you have, the more your mind is occupied with what you have. And the more you're attached to your possessions, the more there is a fear that somebody might come and take it away or you might lose that. That also affects you. So when you have it also you worry, when you lose it also you worry. And the more possessions you have, the more your mind focuses on those possessions. So there is a very nice saying, we buy things which we don't need. Most of the time we buy things we don't need with money that we don't have. So that's why nowadays you find people taking credit. And now there's another more dangerous, what we call avenue for people to buy things who don't have money. They call it BNPL. You know what is BNPL? Buy now, pay later. So I don't have money, but they come up with this buy now, pay later scheme. It's becoming rampant now. You can buy almost anything without money and you pay a little installment every month. So if it costs $500, every month you pay $50, $50. And then next month you see something else, you buy that, and then you pay another $50. So by the time the whole debt starts ballooning. So the saying is, we buy things which we don't need with money that we don't have to impress people we don't like. Isn't it? Just to impress, just to show off to society. We don't even like them, but we want to show off to society. So this person of what we call avoids, he avoids excessive possessions. Why? Because they preoccupy the mind. So a spiritual life, they always advocate a life of aparigraha. See, parigraha means possessions. So our what we call attitude should be aparigraha, which means minimize the possessions, simple living. So mind can focus on higher noble goals of life instead of worrying about your possessions. And there was a little story I read once. A visitor came to see this Swamiji in the ashram, and there was a like a 5-day meditation course or something. So this visitor was staying at the ashram also. So one day he decided to go and just pay a visit to the Swami who was staying in the ashram. When he went to the Swami's room, he saw that the room was very bare. There was a bed, there was a cupboard, and there was a little table to do writing on it. Just three things. So he asked the Swamiji, he said, Swamiji, you are staying in this ashram. How come you only have just, three items in your whole room? So the Swamiji told him, what about in your room? What do you have? He said, I also have bed, I have a cupboard, and I have a writing table. But I'm only here for a short time. Swamiji replied, I am also here for a short time. We are all here for a short time. So what is the point of accumulating, and accumulating? So parigraha is a very also important what we call negative quality that we have to overcome also. And nowadays, you see, Western gurus and all, what have they coined this term? Minimalistic living, right? They say what we call minimize your possessions. They call it minimalistic living. But something that Geeta has already given to us thousands of years back. Okay, but now they are repackaging it as minimalistic living. Next, so what happens when all these 6 qualities, when we are able to overcome all these 6 qualities, Krishna says the seeker becomes nirmamaha. Okay, nirmamaha means free from this attitude of minus, free from identification with body, free from identification with possessions, relationships, power, position. You mentally, now very important to understand, you don't physically give up, you mentally detach yourself with the understanding that everything that you have is a blessing from the Lord and He can take it away anytime that He wants. So that should be my attitude in life, that whatever I have is given by the Lord, and since He has given me, He can take it away anytime. He has the right to take it away anytime He wants. So I should be thankful for whatever He gives me. The next thing, if we have these 6 qualities, Krishna says, such a person will be Shantaha. Shantaha means the mind is serene, the mind is calm, the mind is peaceful. When such a condition occurs, that the attitude of the seeker is nirmama, he is not attached to any possessions, and his mind is calm, then Krishna says he comes to the next higher stage, which he calls here as kalpate. He is fit, he is qualified for what? Brahma bhuyaya, to become Brahman. So to become Brahman. Now, what does it mean? If we follow all these right sadhanas, if we are able to overcome all these 6 negative qualities, we become Brahman. So what do we mean by becoming Brahman? That's what we have to understand. What do you mean by becoming Brahman? Does your face change? Does your body change? Do you suddenly disappear? What happens? What do you mean by becoming Brahman? Huh?
Get moksha.
Everybody wants to rush to moksha very fast. You are first becoming Brahman. So actually okay, you say moksha is correct in a way, but what does the real moksha mean? You're living. Imagine you're living. You're not dead and gone somewhere. He says you become Brahman while living. So what does this term become Brahman mean? Huh? Merge. Okay. But practically to me, what does it mean? Huh? So how do I explain a realized soul? No desires.
Liberation.
Sorry? Liberation. Becoming Brahman means I no longer identify with this body, I identify with the universal consciousness. So I identify with everything in consciousness. That means there is no difference between the creation and myself. Everybody I consider as part and parcel of myself. So hatred, anger, jealousy, pride, everything just go away. So that is what it means by becoming Brahman, because Brahman is universal consciousness. By not identifying with the body, I identify with the universal consciousness. My mind is at peace. I don't get agitated. I don't get jealous. I don't get angry, because to me, everything is one. And I'm part and parcel of that entirety. Okay? So that is what it means as becoming Brahman.
Jiva Mukta.
Yes, exactly. You can call it Jivan Mukta, or what Krishna spoke about in chapter 2, Sthita Prajna, right? In chapter 2, last 18 verses. So it's Jivan Mukta. You're free and you identify with the universal consciousness. That is what it means by becoming Brahman. So now in the next verse 54, he carries on. So step by step, he's telling us the process of liberation. Now he says in verse 54, what happens, or what is the description of such a person who has become Brahman? So he says, Brahma Bhutaha, one who has become Brahman, one who has attained the state of oneness with the universe, okay, state of Satchit Ananda or Jivan Mukta. What is the nature of such a person? So again, is a checklist for us, okay? The first quality is Prasannatma. Again, the word Atma is there. Prasannatma. This word Atma means again mind, okay, not the soul. It means the mind. Prasannatma means the mind becomes pure. His mind is totally purified. Now, what do you mean by a purified mind? A purified mind is one that is devoid of all the negative qualities like jealousy, anger, pride, ego, etc. Devoid of rajasic, tamasic qualities. A sattvic mind is a purified mind. Okay? So, prasannatma. And what else? Na sochati. Such a person does not grieve over what is lost. Whatever possessions he have, he loses any possessions, he gets something and then it goes away. He is not at all disturbed. Na sochati. Right? Wisdom has given him the clarity of life, and as long as he's engrossed in that higher bliss, so whatever possessions he has, he's not affected. As he has already discovered that inner bliss, he's forever connected to the inner bliss. And Krishna spoke about this also earlier. If you go back to chapter 6, verse 20, 21, and 22. Chapter 6, verse 20, 21, and 22. That is on page 121 or 122. Okay. So you see that that state in which the yogi finds supreme bliss. And then in verse 22, he says, having obtained that which he thinks there is no greater gain, once he's attained that level of joy, that level of inner peace, nothing else in the world can give him more greater peace. So whatever he has also is not going to add more to his peace, because he's already at the highest level of peace. And at the same time, whatever he loses, he's also not disturbed. So na sochati, he does not grieve. Next quality, na kankshati, he also does not crave for anything else. He does not think, I don't have this, I don't have that. He's already in a state of bliss, right? So in chapter 2, verse 46 or so, Krishna gave a very beautiful allegory of such a person. Going back to chapter 2, verse 46. See, as I said, chapter 18 is a summary, so you will find it connects to all the previous verses. So if you come to chapter 2, verse 46, page 45, a Brahmin who has obtained enlightenment has the same use for all the Vedas as one has for a small reservoir of water in a place flooded with water on all sides. Meaning, such a person who has already obtained the highest bliss has what we call has very little use for the Vedas. Now, why is that? Why has he very little use for the Vedas? What is the purpose of studying the Vedas or Bhagavad Gita and all that? To attain that level of peace and identification with the universal consciousness. Once you have attained that state, what is the point of again going back to read the scriptures? The scriptures lead you to that state of highest bliss. Once you already attain the state of highest bliss, then you don't need to go back and depend on the scriptures anymore. You have already realized the goal. So here also, this person has attained a state of purnatvam. So he has no more hankering. He is already at a state of full happiness.
On the six.
Was
It says same use for all the Vedas
yeah,
as one has for small
reservoir water, right,
So for me, it means that the Vedas is just the reservoir of water.
right.
So I have got that already,
Ah,
but looks like that's not enough. There's a lot more water around.
correct.
me.
So
There's a lot I don't know.
that means actually what you call the whole happiness, he's already got the whole happiness. What it means is like this. I've already attained that entire happiness.
Yes.
So even if all the water is there, I have access to all the water. What is a small pond of water going to help me?
Yeah, but
When
does
I-
it also mean I don't have all the knowledge yet?
No, 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 no. That means this person has transcended the Vedas. He's already followed the teachings of the Vedas. He has attained that higher state of bliss. And therefore, he has no what we call no more dependence on the studies, because that is what already is the purpose of those studying the scriptures is to attain that happiness, and you already attained that happiness. So na kamshati means no more craving at all. Okay. And what else? How does this devotee who is established in this identification with the higher self, he also will continue to meet people who are friendly to him, who are hostile to him. So how does he interact with people? So he says he is samaha. His attitude is even with what? Sarva bhuteshu. All the beings he looks upon as one consciousness. So he does not hate or love anybody excessively more. He has samaha means equal, what we call interaction with everyone in society. Okay, he does not discriminate. So what happens to this person again? Krishna concludes, such a person, labate, he attains mat bhaktim, devotion to param, to me, the supreme. His devotion is at the extreme level of what we call of height to the Supreme Lord. So there is no more higher devotion than this, because to see the whole creation as God is in the whole creation, Krishna calls this as the highest level of bhakti. So in the bhakti scriptures, now here the Lord is mentioned, this is the state of highest bhakti, highest devotion. If we look at the bhakti scriptures, this state of highest bhakti is given a name. It is called Tivra Bhakti. Tivra, Tivra Bhakti. It is the highest bhakti for the Lord you can attain. Okay, intense devotion. And this intense devotion is beautifully mentioned in Narad Bhakti Sutras. Okay, have you all heard about Narad Bhakti Sutras? Right? 84 verses. And how did this Narad Bhakti Sutras come about? Is that Narad went to visit Sage Vyasa in his ashram. And Sage Vyasa had composed all the great scriptures like what we call these Brahma Sutras. He had composed Mahabharata and what you call Bhagavad Gita and Upanishads. Sorry, no Upanishads, Puranas. But yet Ved Vyasa felt, I have all the knowledge, but something is missing in me. So he asked Narad, what is it that I lack still? I feel like something is still not correct. So Narad said, you have the knowledge, but what you need to do is the bhakti must be there. So bhakti must be there in your action, bhakti must be there in your worship, bhakti must be there in your knowledge also. So that essence of bhakti is very important. But this bhakti, he described in one of the verses, a person engaged in such pure devotional service who has reached this level of bhakti neither desires anything for sense gratification, number one. Number two, nor laments for any loss. He loses anything, he doesn't grieve over it. Nor hates anything, nor enjoys anything on his own personal account. So all these qualities here, which were mentioned also in this verse, is the height of bhakti, is the highest level of bhakti, param bhakti. So therefore, the type of devotees are therefore divided into three categories now. The first category, which is the highest, is called Uttam, the highest, the best type of bhakti. Such a person only has God in his heart. His love is for Bhagwan. Everywhere he sees the Lord. There is no division. There is no division or duality in him. He sees everything as one. That is called the highest level of bhakti or Uttama bhakti. Lower than this is called Madhyam, middle level, where he sees some duality. God and him are different. There is God and there is a devotee. So there is some differentiation still. And he may have some love for some people and he may not like some people. The lowest form of bhakti is called Samanya Bhakti, Samanya, Samanya Bhakti. At this level, it is said that our worship is only to a particular idol. So beyond that, we cannot see God. So that is it's not to say it is bad, but it is a starting level of bhakti, where we see God only in one idol. Slowly, we have to learn to understand that God is pervading everywhere and He is in everyone and in everything. So bhakti, true bhakti, must have two very important qualities. Okay? Whenever we say we are, some people say, I'm a great bhakta of the Lord, I'm a great devotee of the Lord. But these two qualities must be there in order to qualify as true devotion. So what are the two qualities of a true bhakta? The first is bhakti must be unconditional. Right? What do we mean by unconditional? When everything is going your way, I love you, God. God, you're very good. God, you're very nice. God, you're what you call compassionate and all that. The minute we have some problems in life, then what happens to our relationship with God? Right? Then we blame Him for everything. So that is not true bhakti. True bhakti is unconditional, whether I am in a favorable situation or unfavorable situation. So first quality of true bhakti is unconditional. Second is there is no interruption in the bhakti. It is a continuous bhakti. So unconditional and interruption, no interruption in your bhakti. That means it remains strong all the while your devotion to God remains strong. right? Irregardless of your situation, irregardless of external situations, your devotion to God remains strong. So this is what in Narad Bhakti Sutras he outlines it very beautifully in those 84 verses, which is a dialogue between Narad and Vedvyasa to explain the true bhakti. So now, sorry.
The outcome,
Yeah.
I think, because I didn't read this Narada
Huh.
thing, but I read about it.
Right.
It says that Vyasa was a bit, he felt a little bit of a void in him
Exactly.
after writing Mahabharata.
Correct.
With the Gita, everything inside.
Correct.
So he felt something was
Not
missing.
correct. Yeah.
So Narada said, what is missing? Your bhakti for Lord Krishna has been eclipsed by all that action and all about the Pandavas and the Kauravas and all that, and he became like in the shadows. So now you must write something which tells all about
Bhakti.
God, Lord Krishna. So Srimad Bhagavatam was written after this.
Yes. So Srimad Bhagavatam is also a lot about devotion again, bhakti towards Lord Krishna. Okay. Is considered one of the 18 Puranas. Okay. So now that brings us to verse 55, where he carries on telling us about this such a supreme bhakta. So that's why when we come to what we call about attaining this truth, so this is what he'll tell us now. He says, established in the state of highest bhakti, this bhaktaya, the one who through devotion, okay, the one who's gone through this devotion and what we call this highest, has reached the highest level of devotion, okay. So this devotion again can be broken up into two. If you look at devotion, there is a thing called as apara or lower bhakti. And then there is a para or higher bhakti. Okay. So what is the difference between lower and higher bhakti? In the lower bhakti, there are two stages. And we all go through this. Okay? There are two stages. In the lower bhakti, the first stage is called gauna or secondary bhakti. And the second one is called mukhya or primary bhakti. Okay. So what is the difference? In secondary bhakti, there is a little trace of rajoguna. We pray to the Lord, we have bhakti, but there are a lot of selfish desires. So we pray to what we call get something or remove obstacles and all that. Again, I'm not saying it's wrong, but this is how we should progress. So we start with that type of bhakti, which is called gauna or secondary bhakti, where there is some rajoguna in us, so there is some selfishness in us also in our prayers. When we come to the higher state, that is what we call mukhya bhakti, there is only sattvic gunas in us, where our prayers become more calm and peaceful and more for the universal, what we call benefit of everyone. Then in para bhakti, the higher state of bhakti, there the devotee has gone, see, the first stage of bhakti, we don't have the knowledge. So we are just at the level of rituals and prayers. When we go through the knowledge and understand that God is all pervading, He's in us and He's everywhere, then we reach that higher state of bhakti where we realize that there is totality, that this consciousness is all pervading. Then we have nothing to ask the Lord. There is no more prayer that is asking the Lord. It is just praying to the Lord out of love. That's all. Pure love. So that is that higher stage of bhakti, which is called the para bhakti. And this is what Lord is speaking about here. Okay. So what he says is, when this person has attained that higher state of bhakti, then abhijanati, he knows, he will come to know mam, meaning he will come to know me. How will he come to know me? Asmi, what I am, tattvataha, in truth, in essence. So as I said earlier, when we are at the initial stage of our spiritual what we call practice, when we don't have the knowledge, we can only see God in a very limited form. Krishna form, Rama form, Ganesha, Devi, etc. But when we have gone through their knowledge, then we understand the very essence of the Lord. The Tattvataha means God is all-pervading. He is everywhere. So He's within me and He's also in this whole creation also. Okay. So therefore, what it means in very simple terms, you move from worship of Saguna Ishvara, Ishvara with form, to Nirguna Ishvara, the Ishvara who is formless. Okay. So that's why we have also different levels of God. You see, you hear the words Brahman, that is also God. Then you hear words Paramatma, that is also God. Then you also hear the word Bhagwan, that is also God. So are there three different gods? These are three levels of consciousness that a devotee goes through. So what are the difference between Brahman, Paramatma and Bhagavan? Brahman is all-pervading consciousness. When we talk about all-pervading consciousness, the name Brahman is given. Okay. Paramatma is that indwelling consciousness in us. When that same consciousness is that indwelling consciousness, we call it Paramatma. Okay. And when we worship the Lord in form, that is called Bhagavan. So there are three different levels of consciousness that a devotee goes through. Seeing God in form, recognizing that consciousness residing in you, and the highest level is understanding that consciousness is all-pervading. Brahman, Paramatma, Bhagavan. But this devotee is able to worship Lord in all aspects. That's why you go back to chapter 7, verse 1 again. There Krishna explains it very briefly. Chapter 7, verse 1. Page 135. Okay. Chapter 7, verse 1. He says, O Partha, Arjuna, now hear how with mind attached or devoted to me and practicing yoga with me as thy refuge, you will know me in full without doubt. Know me in full. So what does he mean here when he says, you will know me in full? Meaning, when you go through this path of karma, bhakti and jnana, you will know me as Saguna Ishvara, you will know me as Nirguna Ishvara. Therefore, you will know me as totality. And this is why we look at Adi Shankaracharya, although he worshipped and recognized God is Brahman, yet he worshipped all the different idols also. He could accept God as Saguna and as Nirguna. So he understood God in totality. That God is appearing here and yet he is also the all-pervading consciousness. So this is the same thing here, what Krishna is telling Arjuna, he will know me in essence, tattvataha. And what happens when he comes to know me that I am Saguna Ishvara, I am Nirguna Ishvara, what happens to such a person when he reaches that next stage of devotion? He says, tataha, then Jnatva, having known me, tattvataha in truth. Now what happens to such a devotee? Having known God in totality, he says, such a devotee, Vishate, enters tat anantaram. Immediately he enters into moksha. So you can see how part by part, step by step, how the devotee progresses and attains moksha. So at this state, when the devotee knows God as Saguna and Nirguna, at the end of this life, he or she will attain moksha, will not come back for another birth at all. So, this prayer, whenever we recite it, Asato ma Satgamaya, beautifully this explains in this verse. Tamaso ma Jyoti Gamaya, Mrityu ma Amritam Gamaya. So we will look at the first line. What is it? Asatoma Sadgamaya. What is asat? What does the word asat mean? What is the word? Okay, sat, means what? Truth. So what does asat mean? Sorry? That which is not the truth. So what do you mean by what is the truth? How do you define truth? He's saying asatoma, from untruth lead me to truth. Now, how would you define truth? How do the scriptures define truth? Knowledge? No.
So God removes.
So how would you? Huh? So you are near the answer. How would you define truth? You say God is truth. But what does it mean? Truth is that which remains the same throughout all periods of time, that never changes at all. That is truth. So that's why we say God is truth, because he remains the same through all periods of time. Excuse me. Before creation, he was there. During creation, he is there. When the creation dissolves, he will still be there. That is truth. Now, if that is truth, what is untruth? Which is temporary, which is constantly changing. Therefore, when we say asatoma sadgamaya, lead me from the temporary to the permanent, right? Lead me from what is changing to that which is non-changing, the changeless. Okay, how do I do that? Then the second line gives you the clue. Tamasoma jyoti gamaya. Right now you are in a state of tamas, which means darkness, which means ignorance. Because you're ignorant of that unchanging reality, you are in a state of tamas. So he says, lead me from tamas to jyoti. What is jyoti? Light, which represents knowledge. So by knowledge, I come to understand what is that which is the non-changing truth. Okay, then what happens to me now that I have the knowledge of this unchanging reality? The last line says what you will experience. Mrityu ma amritam gamaya. Mrityu, from death, lead me to amritam, immortality. Meaning what? Do you become immortal? Huh? Do you become immortal? He says, lead me from death to immortality. But do you become immortal?
Become born again.
Huh?
Get born again.
Once you recognize you are the Atma, you were already immortal. It's not that you become immortal, you recognize your immortality. Right now, you're immortal, but you don't know it because you are in a state of tamas. So once you gain knowledge, you don't become immortal, you realize that you are immortal. So you don't change from body to consciousness. You realize that you are the consciousness. And that is what is beautifully explained in all these verses. That one prayer explains all this. Okay. So now that brings us to verse number 56. Okay. So now in 56, he is going to again repeat the importance of karma yoga, because sure.
This Tivara Bhakti
Huh.
you mentioned earlier and the Uttama Bhakti same.
Almost the same, because Tivra also is unconditional and the highest level of
So
bhakti.
it's just different terms.
Different terms used, exactly. Yeah, but in our bhakti or bhakti scriptures is identified as Tivra Bhakti. So here is going to explain to us about the importance of karma yoga, because we should not come to jnana yoga if we have not gone through the process of karma yoga. So karma yoga is very important to build the very foundation of our whole spiritual path. So here he touches back again on that foundation part of karma yoga. So he repeats now here, he says, Sada kurvanaha. Sada means always. Kurvanaha, engaging in what? Sarva karmani. So very first important lesson now. Always engaging in all actions, meaning what? Always engaging in all actions. See, every word carries a deep meaning here. always engaging in all actions, meaning the path to spirituality does not start by you giving up actions. We might wrongly think that by taking up sannyasa, by going to an ashram, by going to sit and meditate in a cave, I'm going to attain liberation. No. He's saying first, engage in all your action. Do all your duties according to the four varnas. You remember the four, the Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya, Sudra. Whichever category you fall under, all are important. Whichever category you're in, discharge your duties as a lawyer, engineer, teacher, doctor, whatever it is. Engage in your actions. Number one. Number two, also according to your ashrama. Ashrama means your stage of life. Whether you're a bachelor, you're a married person, you're a retiree, whatever stage of life you're going through, at every stage you have to fulfill your duties and responsibilities. Now, that is the action part. But what is more important than just doing your duties, he mentions here, mat vya pashraya. Vya pashraya means taking refuge, taking shelter under the mat here means refers to me or the Lord. So the Lord is saying, do your duties, take care of your responsibilities and duties, don't run away and shun them, but take refuge or take shelter in me. Now, what does it mean by taking shelter in the Lord? We have to understand this practically. What do I mean by performing my duties but taking shelter in the Lord? How do I do it? What does it mean in practice? In practice, what does it mean?
Surrender all your actions to the Lord.
Right, you surrender.
So I'm not the doer.
Yeah, so that means we shed our ego, our negative qualities. We must never get that attitude that I am doing everything, I'm doing this, I'm doing that. So first of all, he says, shed your ego and always consider yourself as an instrument in the hands of the Lord. See that beautifully Lord gave that magic formula to Arjuna in that beautiful verse, chapter 11, verse 33. If you look at, go back to chapter 11, verse 33, page number 216. There's one very beautiful word there in Sanskrit, in the last line of verse 33, to page 216. Nimita matram bhava. He's telling Arjuna, fight this battle, but take up your arms, but with what attitude? Nimita matram bhava. Bhava, may you become a nimita matram, an instrument in my hands. So never consider yourself, whatever action you're doing, you are not doing it. You are just an instrument in the hands of the Lord. That's all. So that means shedding your ego, dedicating all your actions, nimitra matram bhava. So first of all, you have to trust in God's will. That is one of the prerequisites. What do I mean by trusting in God's will is that whatever is happening in your life, that is what God has determined for you. So trusting that whatever happens, it is what God has determined for you. Okay. Even when life is confusing, even when life is painful, you're going through challenges, but you have to trust God with that. So that is what is called taking shelter in Him. Okay. Number two, surrendering your ego. Surrender your ego. Don't ever have that attitude that because of me, things are happening. Number three, devotion, bhakti, loving and remembering God through prayer, through chanting, through seva, through dhanam, all this. So devotion is another important aspect. So here very important, it does not mean escaping responsibility, is performing all your actions by giving up your ego. And what happens, the Lord says, to such a person who follows this path of action, surrendering everything to me, He says, avaknoti, such a person attains shashvatam, eternal, avyayam, immutable padam state. Such a person will attain the state of eternal and immutable. state. That is what he will attain. Now, we have to be very careful again. When he says such a person going through karma yoga will attain the state of immutable, eternal state. What does it mean? First of all, he says, how will you attain it? Now I'm doing actions. I'm surrendering everything to the Lord. He says you will attain this state. And then he gives us the very key here. Mat prasadat. Mat meaning me, the Lord. Prasadat meaning, you see, you come to temple, they give you what they call prasad. So prasad means actually grace, the grace of the Lord. So when you are taking prasad, that is actually the grace of the Lord, because why? You have put the fruit, you go to market, you call it prasada. You call it what? Fruit. When it comes to the ashram, you put your altar, then suddenly it becomes, why? Because you have offered it to the Lord. Same way, when you offered your actions to the Lord, the return is the prasad or the fruit that you receive. So, mat prasada. So, very careful, what does he mean by this state which is immutable and eternal? For that, a devotee, we have to understand, we go back to chapter 10, verse 10 and 11. Okay, there it is explained. Chapter 10. Now, please don't get confused. I know I'm going back and forth, but because chapter 18 is linked to all the chapters, the answers are all there. I'm not trying to confuse you. Chapter 10, verse 10 and 11. So, page 184. Okay, see chapter 10, verse 10 first. To those who are constantly devoted and worship me with love, Lord says, you are constantly devoted and you worship me with love, meaning unconditional worship. You're not always asking God for things. That is, it's talking about pure, unconditional worship. What does the Lord do? I give that yoga of understanding by which they come to me. So, meaning what? Meaning, when you dedicate all your actions to the Lord, by His grace, He will bring you to the level of jnana yoga. He will bring you to the level of knowledge. So, in the next verse, he talks about that in chapter 10, verse 11. Chapter 10, verse 11. He says, out of compassion for them, I, dwelling in their inner hearts, dispel the darkness born of ignorance by the shining lamp of wisdom. So he will clear the path of jnana yoga for you. He will bring you to the path of knowledge. And once you come to the path of knowledge, you will understand him in totality. So worship is very powerful. That unconditional, pure worship of the Lord, you get his grace and you will attain the path of jnana yoga. So if we apply this attitude in every day, and we have to bring this attitude in everyday work life, it's not just going to temple and just worshipping him. It is bringing that work is worship into our total life also. So here he's explained to us the importance of karma yoga, why we should all start off with karma yoga. So now we come to verse number 57. Verse number 57. So here now he's going to summarize that part to self-realization, okay, in this next few verses. So in 57, now very important here he says, dedicate. The word sannyasa here means dedicate. Dedicate what? Sarva karmani, all actions to me. So the Lord is saying now, dedicate all your actions to me. But here there's a very important word we must look at. Chetasa. Chetasa means mentally dedicate your actions to me. So physically we are going around doing the same actions, the same duties. How do we dedicate the actions to the Lord? Is by mentally invoking him in our prayers, invoking him in our mind, and also what we call, when we perform the actions, we are always doing it as an offering to him. So mentally dedicating all our actions to the Lord, okay? So that right attitude has got to be cultivated, right? Meaning all our impurities have got to be removed from the mind. Okay? And in one of the previous verses also, he has also mentioned this, and that's a very beautiful verse in chapter 9, verse 27. Chapter 9, verse 27. This is one of the very popular verses in the Gita. Page 175. Chapter 9, verse 27. O Arjuna, whatever you do, whatever you eat, whatever you offer as oblation to the sacred fire, whatever you bestow as a gift, dhanam, whatever you do by way of penance, austerities, offer it all to me. So bring the Lord into your daily life. Before you eat your food, what you should do? Chant the prayer. Be thankful for the food that you receive. So this is how, see, you might do it mechanically in the beginning, doesn't matter. But the more and more you keep on chanting, the more and more it becomes a natural part of you. So how do we bring God in our daily life? When we wake up from bed, what is the first thing we should do? Check your handphone. That's what we do, isn't it? But what should you do? Say a prayer. Then you start your day with a prayer. Before you go to sleep, check your handphone again. No, say a prayer again. So before you eat, say a prayer. So at least 3 times a day you are saying a prayer for the Lord. Morning you get up one prayer, night you get up one prayer. That's already 5. Whatever you do, even if you're giving charity, say a prayer. Why do we say a prayer when we're giving charity? Yeah, so what happens? There is humility. We're always thinking that it is because of the Lord's grace I am able to give. So the more and more we invoke the Lord, that humility comes in us, that ego is removed out. So here he says also, offer all your actions to me. Okay. How? Not physically, but mentally also. Okay. And he says, mat paraha, accepting me as the most supreme, as the goal of your life. So it doesn't mean that you can't have other goals in your life. We can have many, many other goals in our life. But we must always keep Lord as the primary goal in our life. So whatever you want to achieve in life, carry on, go ahead. But your primary goal must always be to attain that oneness with God. Why is that? When you make God as your primary goal, whatever actions that you do will not violate dharma. You will be very careful that you won't violate dharma. So if you want to open a business, you want to earn money, you will do it in the right way. Right? If you're a doctor, you're treating a patient, you won't unnecessarily make the patient go through unnecessary things because you are always thinking of God as your ultimate goal. So you will never go wrong. You will always be at the path of dharma. So then the Lord says, Machittaha bhava satatam. Have your mind always fixed on me. Okay. So this requires practice, requires going to temples, requires listening to spiritual lectures. Even your, what you call this, YouTube videos you have nowadays, you're very fortunate. You can listen to so many Swamijis around the world. So constantly engage in that, chanting mantras, going to temples, listening to spiritual lectures, listening to bhajans. Constantly occupy your mind with that connection to the Lord. So if, as I say in the beginning, it might be mechanical, but eventually it will become automatic for you. And therefore, the Lord says, when you keep your mind fixed on the Lord, upasritaya buddhi yoga, you must also spend time reading the scriptures. Buddhi yoga means reading your scriptures. So keeping your intellect sharp also. So this is the path by path that the Lord has given us. And then next week we will come back and discuss from verse 58 onwards. Okay. We end with the prayer. Vasudevasutam devam Kansachanuramardanam Devaki Paramanandam Krishnam Vande Jagadguru. Thank you, Hari.